Hello, everyone. Welcome to Canada-Taiwan-Indo-Pacific Strategy Forum by GTMA Canada Global Health Association. I'm JC Shen, today's moderator. Today, we are very honored to have three distinguished speakers, and I will introduce them in alphabetical order. The first one is钟佳濱. He is a member of a parliament in Taiwan, and he just joined the CPTPP delegation groups to visit Canada last year. And the second is Jim Nico. He is currently executive director of Canada Trade Office of Taiwan and de facto ambassador of Canada in Taiwan, if you like. And previously, he served as the deputy head of mission at the Embassy of Canada in Beijing, and also Director General North America in Global Affairs Canada. And finally, we have Honorable Judy Sgro. She is a Liberal member of Parliament in Canada and also have been served as the chair of Canada-Taiwan Parliamentary Friendship Group for years. And as we all know that, recently there are two documents which is significant to signal change of Canada's policy in Indo-Pacific strategy area. The first one is the Canada government launched Indo-Pacific strategy at the end of last year in order to enhance Canada's presence in the area. And the second one is the House of Commons Special Committee on the Canada-Taiwan Relations Committee. They published a report entitled Canada and Taiwan, a Strong Relationship in Turbulence Times, which highlight Parliament's suggestion about Canada's Taiwan policy. And currently, both Canada and Taiwan belong to APEC. And we also have a GCTF, Global Cooperation and Training Framework, which allow Canada and Taiwan to work together. And also Taiwan and Canada are engaged in discussion on a possible bilateral foreign investment promotion and protection agreement, BPA. So since the two documents, the first one about the government, and Jim obviously know a lot about Canadian government's position. So I'd like to begin questions to Jim. Hi, Jim. Could you tell us a little bit about Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy and why did Canada change from Asia-Pacific to Indo-Pacific? Because we all know that in the past, all Canadians' government documents are all about Asia-Pacific. And why suddenly now we change it to Indo-Pacific strategy? And what do Canada want to achieve in this region? And most importantly, of course, relate to today's topic. How does it relate to Taiwan?
Great. Well, thanks very much for those questions, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today. It's a great opportunity. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, I guess, if you're in Canada. Well, thanks for the question about Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy. As you know, our foreign minister launched the Indo-Pacific strategy last November. So I think perhaps there's been some good news coverage of it in Canada, and people have some familiarity with the Indo-Pacific strategy. But let me address the questions you've raised. Well, why would we switch from Asia-Pacific to Indo-Pacific? Essentially, it's as simple as adding in the Indian subcontinent, which is in the Indian Ocean. I guess you could think if we were talking Asia-Pacific, maybe we're only talking about those countries that touch on the Pacific Ocean. But if we include India, which is now reportedly the most populous nation in the world, with the largest demographic of young people, and strategically important country and the largest democracy in the world, then I think we probably need to include the Indian Ocean and India itself, and therefore we have the Indo-Pacific region. Let me just say that this region, the Indo-Pacific region, will be the most important region for Canada for the next half century. This is the most dynamic region of the world. We have, it represents what, 40 economies, over 4 billion people, $4.7 trillion of economic activity, and 2/3 by 2030 we'll have 2/3 of the global middle class will be living in this region. There's other factors, of course, that are incredibly important. By 2040, half of the world's economy will be driven by the Indo-Pacific region. Currently today, half of the greenhouse gas emissions come out of this region as well, the Indo-Pacific region. So they're both great opportunities and some significant challenges if we think about some of the military buildup, some of the tensions that exist in parts of the region. And I must also add, even though there's great economic growth, the fastest growing part of the world, still 37% of the world's poor live in this region as well. So both great opportunities, great challenges, and essentially from the Government of Canada's point of view, the future prosperity, well-being, and standard of living that Canadians have become accustomed to will be increasingly affected by things that happen in the Indo-Pacific region and the relationships that Canada has with its partners in this region.
Yeah, thank you. And when the Indo-Pacific strategy report, when you mentioned to Taiwan, it specifically mentioned about Canada's one China policy. And given that Canada has the one China policy, which is significantly restricted Canada and Taiwan to have any formal relations. So I'm just wondering, so according to your opinion, how can Canada and Taiwan to advance or to enhance its diplomatic relations?
Well, I think that even though we do not have formal government-to-government relations with Taiwan, therefore no formal official diplomatic relations, we have very close relations nonetheless. And we have very deep ties between Canada and Taiwan, obviously in areas of trade and economic activity, but perhaps even more importantly, our people-to-people connections with Taiwan. And within our One China policy, we have great latitude for very deep, rich, and important and mutually beneficial economic relations, cultural relations, people-to-people relations. And I would say that within the Indo-Pacific strategy, which lists our commitment to peace, stability, and resilience in this region. It lists up investing in people and those connections between people. The strategy talks about expanding our economic and trade relationships in the region, and of course, a commitment to sustainable development towards a green future. Well, in all of these areas, Canada's One China policy allows for deep and rich engagement between the people of Canada and the people of Taiwan.
Thank you. And Jim, you know that the Taiwanese government has been long asking Canada's support to join international organizations such as the WHA, ICAO, and CPTPP. I'm wondering, do you have any insight to share with us about Canadian government's position on Taiwan's participation in those international organizations?
Yes, well, thank you very much for that question. And Canada has had a long-standing position of supporting Taiwan's active and meaningful participation in those international organizations where Taiwan's contribution will be important for all global players, including Canada. Obviously, I think it's been demonstrated very well during the COVID pandemic that COVID respected no borders or jurisdictions or any kind of political jurisdictions, and therefore it was incredibly important that that information about the pandemic in Taiwan and Taiwan's handling of the pandemic here is important information for global health. So global health, these are global issues that transcend boundaries, and therefore in areas like global health, it's important that Taiwan participate. You mentioned the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. Clearly, Taiwan has some major airlines that fly internationally, and for international flight safety, it would be important, of course, to have Taiwan participating in those discussions. So I guess our bottom line then is, where there is meaningful and important participation that contributes to international rules, to global well-being, shared concerns, Taiwan should definitely be participating, and Canada will support Taiwan's participation in those organizations.
Yes, thank you, Jim. But how about CPTPP?
Yeah, so interesting. It's been, as you know, and others on the line will be aware, the CPTPP is intent on expanding that trade grouping. We want to have more economies in that trade grouping. The accession process for the United Kingdom is finally coming to an end, and the UK will be joining as the next party to that trade agreement. And then there are four or five other economies that have applied to join. Taiwan, of course, being one of them. And at least from Canada's perspective, we're very pleased with the efforts that Taiwan has shown to demonstrate that it can meet the very high standards of this trade agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is a very progressive trade agreement as well. So the standards are very high, the ambitions are very high, and what Canada and other parties to the CPTPP will be looking for in assessing applications will be can the applicants meet those high standards and high ambitions, and secondly, have the applicants got a good track record of honoring the commitments they've made in trade agreements previously. And that would mainly be looking at their WTO, World Trade Organization, track record to see how they've upheld the commitments that they've made there. So those decisions will be made, and participation, of course, in the CPTPP, new members will be on a merit basis. Canada's approach would be that the aspirant parties that want to join the CPTPP will need to demonstrate that they're ready to do so and willing to do so, and will live up to the commitment of the CPTPP.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And besides the diplomacy, let's talk about economic and technology ties between Canada and Taiwan. And do you see any particular fields that Canada and Taiwan can work together and with synergy, or maybe you find some field Canada and Taiwan can complementary to each other?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I think maybe I think there's a lot of opportunity given the dynamism of Taiwan's economy and the complementarities between the Canadian economy and the Taiwanese economy. I think that in itself lends itself to very close trade and investment relationship. I would include in that science, technology, and innovation as well. But maybe the easier way to answer the question would be to say that both Canada and Taiwan are focused on transitioning our economies to a more green, more digital economy going forward. Taiwan and Canada have many of the same and similar objectives in this regard, and therefore great opportunities for us to cooperate together to move forward to sort of a greener, net zero emission economy and a very digital economy going forward. And I think those areas where Canada has a lot of really innovative research and development in the sciences and technologies that will be important for net zero emissions economy of the future, a very digital future, and Taiwan's demonstrated strength in on the hardware side and the manufacturing side and the advanced manufacturing. I think those are some of the complementarities that are going to work well together. Maybe I'll just a specific area where Canada is transitioning quickly is we're greening our automobile industry. So we're moving to electric vehicles. By 2035 in Canada, fuel cars and light trucks will be banned. So we're making that transition. And the 5 big automobile manufacturers in Canada who are moving to electric vehicles, they'll move quickly. Taiwan's interested in getting into that space as well. And Taiwan has a lot of the capabilities of moving innovation into sort of commercializing innovation. So I think there'll be some good synergies there between Canada and Taiwan.
Thank you, Jim. And very, very good. And one last question. I'm just wondering, because I know the Taiwan's government is looking for, after the FIPA, is there any way do you think Taiwan and Canada can propose to like BTA or even FTA in the near future?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's negotiations are underway on a foreign investment promotion and protection agreement. And I think that is a very good, despite what some of the headlines I read in Taiwan recently, those negotiations are actually going forward quite well. And we're very hopeful that there'll be a good result. And that will provide sort of the protections and incentives for greater investments in both directions, foreign direct investment. And I think that's going to be a very good sign for business on both sides of the Pacific. So that's, of course, a free trade agreement is a much more comprehensive piece. I mean, that negotiation of a free trade agreement is allowed, if I can say that, because, between Canada and Taiwan, because we're both members of the WTO, and the WTO provides for bilateral free trade negotiations agreements as well. I think we'll have to see. I mean, the question there would be, are there the economic reasons or the commercial reasons to do that? And studies would have to be taken on that. But I don't. I think also Canada's been putting more emphasis lately on the CPTPP in this region, and that's sort of the framework that we would like to expand our trade liberalization. So we'll see how it goes forward, but nothing's off the table.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now let's turn to the special committees on the Canada-China relationships report on the relationship between Canada and Taiwan. So I would like to turn the question to Judy. And Judy, you have been served as the chair of Canada-Taiwan Parliamentary friendship groups for years, and recently you led a delegation group to visit Taiwan. As a senior parliament members, you have invaluable experience about how the parliament works. So could you tell us a little bit about recently the Taiwan report from the parliament?
Yes, I'm very happy to, and I want to say hello to Jim and to G-Pin as well. I'm glad to be able to spend a few minutes, and I have to say, Jim, it's great listening to you manage to answer the questions so well and not overstate anything in particular. You certainly are very disciplined, I know, when it comes to answering a lot of these questions. The Canada-China committee that was put together a couple of years ago, and it's really dealing with a lot of the sensitive issues. Well, getting Taiwan on their agenda was not an easy accomplishment either for the group because of the sensitivity that our government has to everything and anything about China, not wanting to ruffle feathers, as you know. And but I asked the Canada-China Committee specifically if they would do a bit of a study into the relationship with Taiwan as another opportunity to profile Taiwan to some of my colleagues in Parliament who aren't necessarily that familiar. And it was a great report. They put a lot of work into it, and it's a terrific report with all of the recommendations that are in there. You asked me at some point about whether or not all of those recommendations are going to get implemented. Well, it would be wonderful. Many of them are pretty simple. There's nothing very complicated about them, but certainly they're not all going to get done overnight. But the time that they put into the recommendations when it was to, continue the multilateral engagements that we have, work on the foreign free trade agreement and the others, they're all very positive things. And I have to say that this week at our caucus meeting, John McKay, who led a recent delegation made up of Canada-China officials and defense, and we had a very strong delegation put together. And they spoke at caucus, the Liberal members spoke at caucus this week, and they couldn't say enough about their visit to Taiwan, how advanced Taiwan is on many issues, the disinformation campaign, how they deal with their defense challenges. I have to say 3 of the members spoke, and the Prime Minister listened to every word that was said. And I think everybody was really impressed with the group that we put together. And the report, of course, the report was released a couple of days before the group went. So they were able to present it to the president and to others. And it really showed how much Canada cares about Taiwan. And I'm sure Jim has looked the report over very well, and it certainly does open the door for continued cooperation and collaborative business opportunities, which of course flies into FIPA. And I'm hopeful that the FIPA will be signed off this year. But a lot of emphasis continues to be on the CPTPP, but it's recommended in the report as well, and the Prime Minister's office has the report, and I think everybody was very pleased with it. They did a very good job.
Thank you. Sounds like it covered quite a broad of issues, and in particular, the report offers 18 recommendations. And as far as I know, Chinese government is not happy about 2 of the issues. The first, and one of the recommendations say that the future of Taiwan must only be the decision of the people of Taiwan. And secondly, imply that Canada's one China policy and leave some room for Taiwan's status. And how would you view the debate? Could you give us a little bit insight about the debate between China and the committee?
Well, certainly the issue of democracy and promoting democracy, and the fact that we feel very strongly that no one should be interfering with the democracy that Taiwan enjoys, and any changes that would get made would have to be made by the people of Taiwan, certainly no one else. And the China One policy continues to have, I guess, a level of flexibility in it on how it's looked at. You know, it's there. We know it's there. Canada tiptoes around to make sure that we are not creating issues, because the issues wouldn't just be for Canada, China. The issues would also be for Taiwan. And we don't want to do anything that is going to cause Taiwan and the Taiwanese people any kind of harm or disruption. And when I was leading a group a few months ago, I had a huge amount of pressure not to go, not from my government, but from other people in the community, that I was going to start World War III. If I went over, they were so afraid that China was going to overreact. And I assured them that we were not going to be causing any kind of problems there, that we were showing our friends how much we cared about them, and it was an important time when Taiwan was having jets fly over and China was using its intimidation tactics. I thought it was even more important for us to make that visit than any other visit that we had made. So we respect the One China policy, but at the same time we continue to look for opportunities for more multilateral agreements that we can have, and continue to look for opportunities to increase trade between our two countries.
Thank you, Judy. I understand the government hasn't yet responded to the report. However, from your perspective, among the 18 recommendations, how many of them are more likely to be adopted by the government? And how many of them will be more challenging to implement?
I think there's a half a dozen of them that are more difficult. But at the end of the day, you know, this is about strengthening democracy, which is something that we all feel very strongly about. And Canada is going to continue the multifaceted engagement that we have with Taiwan. We continue to do the parliamentary visits, and continue to strengthen our ties between all of us. And there's tremendous opportunities for Canada and Taiwan to do additional work to strengthen Taiwan's economy, but also for Canada's economy. So there's no question that this will continue to be a very positive relationship. And I suspect over a certain period of time, given the Indo-Pacific strategy, there will be other opportunities for us to be working closer together.
Thank you, Judy. And one of the recommendations saying that encourage Canadian government and the high-end official to visit Taiwan. As far as I know, the last time Canada had a high official to visit Taiwan was in 1997. And after that, it seems like the visit seems to not continue to be had. I know that recently Taiwan's Aboriginal member, the head has been visiting Canada, but Canada hasn't been visiting Taiwan for many years. And how do you think about the issues? Do you think there's any chance the Canadian government maybe send the high-end official to visit Taiwan in the near future?
Well, I certainly push that all the time, and I am sure that's going to happen. But if I can just go back, you know, Canada is not that big a country, and And Canada moves very carefully and does not want to cause issues for Taiwan. The US has a different approach to how they deal with this, but Canada has a much more gentle approach. We want to continue to strengthen our partnership between our two countries. We want to increase trade opportunities and all of that goes with it. But Canada's not about to go out there and, I think, and do something that would cause a lot of discomfort for Taiwan and Taiwanese people and for our relationship with China. So I expect there will be a minister there at some point without question. But we just don't want to cause a problem for Taiwan any more than you're already dealing with. So let's get through this period of time. Maybe every year I'm very hopeful that maybe next year will be the year that one of the ministers, especially the Minister of Trade. And so if we get to the point of signing an agreement, who knows, maybe the minister will sign that agreement in Taiwan, which is where it would be terrific. So I continue to push, I continue to encourage, but no, we always are very aware of disruptions that could be very negative for both our countries, but most particularly to disrupt Taiwan and the Taiwanese people.
Thank you. And finally, I would like to know a little bit about the Parliament. And we all know that in the United States, even the Democratic and Republicans are, they basically disagree with everything. But with respect to China, it seems that they have consensus about America's policy toward to China. I'm wondering how about Canada's also comment. Do you see that a great divide in our parliament with respect to policy toward China or Taiwan, or do you see that growing consensus between our parliament members regarding the policies?
Well, we're the government, and the government has to, at all times, be thoughtful and responsible. And when you're not the government, you know that within your own politics, you can say all kinds of things because you're never going to have to deliver because you're not the government. But when you are the government, you are expected to behave in a certain way and be respectful of the Canadian population, but also respectful of other countries. And I can say we are not divided. That discussion does not come up a lot. It's only when politics gets involved that the Conservatives will say, change this policy or whatever. But it's not something that the government side is going to be saying or encourage anybody to say that. But let me say that we are very united with the official opposition and all the other parties in the House. We are having a cultural night, I believe May the 10th or 11th, here on the Hill in Sir John A. Macdonald Building. We will have a big celebration to celebrate the culture for Taiwan. And it will be filled with members from all parties. And so the work that's been done over the last 10 years or so has really built up a tremendous amount of respect and cooperation with Taiwan. And we have probably 130 members officially on our Parliamentary Friendship Group list, which is the biggest one of all of the friendship groups. But after what happened with Ukraine, we've had a significant interest in Taiwan. So I suspect that there will be a lot more people come out at the special reception for the Taiwan's cultural evening that we're going to have soon.
Thank you so much. And after listening to Canadians' perspective, I would like to turn to Taiwan's perspective. So I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Zhou. So since you are Taiwan's Parliament members, what do you think about both Taiwan and Canada? What Taiwan and Canada can do to enhance the diplomatic relations and the economic ties between the two countries?
可以讲，
他说什么？
就那个题目。
那你问一下，你再传你这边。
OK，沈荣欽教授问说，就台湾的观点，对于这些立法程序还有双边的外交委员会有什么样的讲法？
首先我要非常感谢，也乐见于加拿大国会呢提出了一个加拿大与中国的报告书，这里面强调，台湾的未来只能由台湾的人民来决定。
First of all, Legislator Zhong Jiabin wants to thank you all for presenting this Canada and Taiwan a strong relationship in turbulent times, and was very welcome that there were parliamentary members that came to Taiwan, and he got his report signed by Chair.
也非常感谢倪杰明大使和Sgro议员对于未来台湾和加拿大发展更进一步关系的乐观期待。
Legislator Zhou also wants to thank Director Jim Nicole and Honorable Judy Sgro for making Taiwan and Canada having stronger relationships.
刚刚主持人多次提到了一中政策。
Just now, Professor Shen mentioned more about the One China policy.
事实上，在台湾，我们许多人民对于国际社会所认可的一中政策和北京所强调的一中原则有什么区别，其实多数不太了解。
Most of the people in the world are ambiguous about Beijing's One China policy and the other rest of the country's perspective on One China policy.
事实上，国际社会认为，在北京的 PRC 才能代表中国，而并不是在台北的 ROC 可以代表中国，这是一个事实。
In most of the world, most countries only recognize PRC as the One China rather than ROC as the One China in the One China policy.
事实上，这一个认知在70年前的台湾国民党政府要负起一个责任，因为他们要求跟 ROC 建立邦交的国家必须认为在台北的 ROC 要代表整个中国。
To pay for this outcome, KMT, Kuomintang in Taiwan, has to pay the price because 70 years ago, the KMT government wanted most countries to recognize ROC government in Taipei to be the solely one China.
事实上，认为在台北的 ROC 可以代表整个中国，就像认为在北京的 PRC 可以代表台湾一样的荒谬。
However, it is ridiculous for recognizing ROC in Taipei and PRC government in China as one China.
那现在我们台湾或是中国的人民都很清楚，台湾的人民到世界各国去旅行，拿的是台北 ROC 发出的护照，而相对的，在中国的人民他到世界各国去旅行，他拿的是北京 PRC 所发出的护照。
However, it is obvious that when Taiwanese go abroad, Taiwanese held the passport from Taipei ROC. When Chinese people go abroad, they hold the passport from the Beijing government.
所以目前我们台湾的人民渴望跟国际社会的交流，就是在这样的现实的基础上去进一步发展。
So we desire to have more relationships with other countries are on basis of the difference between Taiwan and China.
台湾就是台湾，台湾不代表中国。
Taiwan is Taiwan, and Taiwan doesn't represent China.
中国也仅代表中国，不能包括台湾。
And China represents China, which doesn't include Taiwan.
台湾渴望跟包括加拿大在内的民主国家发展更进一步的关系，包括在经济、贸易各项的往来。
Taiwan hopes that we could have more bilateral, multilateral relationships with Canada, due to we are both democratic countries.
尤其是在跟加拿大之间，我们同样是建立在原住民所拥有的土地上的国家。
Taiwan and Canada both built our countries on the foundation of indigenous peoples and their lands.
我们在不同的时期接纳了来自各个地区的移民。
We have accepted different people from all over the world in different times.
我们同样享有自由民主的体制。
We both share the common belief of freedom and democracy.
也积极的发展市场经济。
And are eager to expand our economic basis.
那如今，诚如大使所说的，台湾在半导体的制造业上得到提供了世界各国的需要。
And like Director Jim Nicol just said, our semiconductors are well known in the world.
我们也注意到，这跟加拿大的创新服务业可以互相帮忙，互相合作。
We also noticed that our semiconductor industry could have more cooperation and collaboration between Canada and Taiwan.
那台湾身为能源的进口国，我们也积极的要摆脱对石化燃料的依赖，要使用洁净的绿色能源。
Taiwan is an energy importing country, and we want to have more green energy and clean energy to develop our green future.
我们希望未来在这一点可以跟加拿大合作，未来能够像日本一样，从加拿大进口透过绿色能源产生的氢能。
Like Japan, Taiwan hopes to import hydrogen energy from Canada.
所以我们积极的寻求能够加入 CPTPP。
Therefore, that is also the reason we are eager to join the international organization CPTPP.
就是希望在太平洋地区跟包括加拿大和澳洲有更进一步的，包括像能源上的贸易。
Because we are eager to have more ties and bonds in the Pacific region. For example, like Australia, we are putting our focus on hydrogen energy import and export.
同样的，大家也会注意到，在加拿大跟澳洲之间，台湾可以扮演一个中途站的角色。
As we all know, for hydrogen energy, Taiwan can serve as a jumping point between Canada and Australia.
同时呢，对于现在大家所注重的印太市场，
and also serve as a jump point during in the Indo-Pacific area.
台湾更是前往印度这个市场的非常好的跳板。
Taiwan also is another stepping stone to enter the marketing in India.
所以呢，我们希望能透过跟加拿大国会的这份报告书所呈现的内容一样。
We hope that we could serve as what the report that has mentioned.
我们希望积极的邀请包括加拿大政府在内各国的高级官员来到台湾交流访问。
We are more than eager to invite Canadian high-end officials or scholars or other professionalists to come to Taiwan to open more dialogues and discuss about the future.
希望民主国家在发展国际经济贸易的架构下， 能够适度的让台湾放在一个必须要的位置。
As we are all democratic countries, we hope Taiwan can be put in an important position in economic trade in our international world.
是的，这是我的意见。
As above, this is Legislator Zhong Jiabin's opinion on Dr. Shen's question.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you very much. And finally, I have a question to everyone. And because both the Indo-Pacific strategy and the Taiwan report mention about this information, in particular, in light of recent foreign interference on Canadian elections, which has been very serious debate in Canada. And what do you think about Canada and Taiwan, and how can the two countries work together on these issues? So I would like to begin with Jim.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the other speakers as well for the very interesting comments. Disinformation, cyber attacks, domestic interference. I think there's some important dialogues that could happen and sharing of experiences between Canada and Taiwan. Taiwan, of course, as everyone knows, is a society that is under extreme pressure in terms of disinformation and cyber attacks. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Taiwan is the society that experiences the most cyber attacks per day of any other jurisdiction in the world. When I met with the Ministry of Digital Affairs here recently, it was the minister reported that they have somewhere in the range of 1 million cyber attacks every day. So that's what, 30 million cyber attacks per month against Taiwan. And of course, a very steady campaign of disinformation to try to destabilize the population. And in addition to that, Taiwan has a lot of experience in defending itself against, I guess, what you would call united front activities. These are all relatively new things for Canada, and certainly not at the same level and intensity that Taiwan experiences. So I think there's a lot that Canada can learn from how Taiwan is building up its resilience and its ability to combat that kind of interference. Thank you.
Thank you. So how about Juice? Do you have any insight to share with us?
Add on to that. Jim explained it so very well, but I seen when I was there in my visit and with the group that was just there now, and I believe you'll find that that's one of the opportunities in the next little while that we need to be working closer together. There's a lot on this file that we all need to learn to know better how to protect ourselves here. And Taiwan has been dealing with it for a long time. So I believe that one of our ministers will be reaching out in the very near future to get more knowledge and information on just how you deal with all of that and how we can better protect our systems here in Canada and how to more effectively deal with this disinformation. And you have an excellent plan and an excellent program there. Canada that needs to learn from you how to do that, and I suspect that there will be that will be something that we'll be working on together very soon.
Thank you. How about Mr. Zhong?
好的，台湾是世界上受到假讯息攻击最激烈的国家。
Taiwan is a country that has been interrupted, attacked on cyber attack in the world.
我们都知道，假讯息跟认知战是独裁政权对于民主国家一个很大的威胁。
We all know false information, false attacks, and cyber attacks are a threat from dictator countries.
因为民主国家，我们有言论自由，有新闻自由，我们不能任意的去压制各种的民间讯息。
Because in democratic countries, we have freedom of speech and freedom of media, so we cannot stop these false information and false news.
但是像中国，他们可以雇佣大量的人员，日以继夜的对台湾进行假讯息的轰炸。
However, China can use a lot of people to attack Taiwan cyberspace.
尤其是台湾跟中国使用同样的语言
and
和文字。
China and Taiwan share and uses the same language and writing system.
所以我们更容易受到假讯息的影响。
So it is obviously that Taiwanese people would get affected by these false information and false news.
但是这几年，由于民间团体自发性的觉醒，我们开始人民去学习如何识别假讯息。
However, in these years, people in Taiwan, as the general public, has woken up and learned how to differentiate which news is true and which news is fake.
那加上呢，诚如倪建明大使所说的，台湾也在同样的情况之下，有许多意图诈骗金钱的网络诈欺。
And just like Jim Nicole said, Taiwan has been under this attack for years, especially economic fraud.
因此，现在台湾社会对于各种讯息的真假保持很高度的警觉。
So the Taiwanese people have very high alert and high sensitivity to all these false information and fake news.
那我们政府也投入大量的资源，去在网络的环境之下，提供各种识别讯息真假的管道。
Our government has also put in a lot of effort and energy to stop the false information from spreading.
我想这一点相较于其他世界各国，台湾算是相对有进步的。
And in contrast with other countries, Legislator Zhong thinks Taiwan has more experience on facing cyber attacks.
所以我们也希望说，类似这样的假讯息对民主社会的渗透，是未来会持续的对民主社会的一个威胁。
And we also are very clear and aware that these kind of intrusion of false information will still continuously happen.
那台湾非常愿意跟其他的民主国家分享我们自己在这方面的经验。
And Taiwan will be more than happy to share our experiences and ways to stop this from happening.
Okay, thanks to our three distinguished speakers for sharing with us about their invaluable insights regarding Taiwan and Canada's relationship. And also thanks to GTMA for organizing this event. So today's forum, we are going to end up here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night. Good day to everyone there.
Canada has investment treaties with many countries around the world. Taiwan is not one of them, which is unfortunate. Canada and Taiwan have a very strong bilateral trading relationship, not so much so when it comes to investment. And one of the reasons is that we don't have a formalized investment treaty in place. I believe it's long overdue, and I believe the Canadian government should immediately move forward with beginning negotiations with Taiwan to formalize that agreement. Absolutely. Taiwan and Canada have a very good relationship, and the Indo-Pacific strategy, which the government recently released and which I had a chance to review, acknowledges the fact that some of our trading partners around the world are not necessarily like-minded when it comes to our values, when it comes to democracy, freedom, human rights, the rule of law, following the rules-based trading order within the global family. Taiwan is one of those countries that follows all those rules and shares our values. And that's why I think it's time for us to reach out to Taiwan and to our TPP trading partners and ask them to welcome Taiwan into a negotiation process that would eventually lead to Taiwan being part of the CPTPP family. Well, we know that Canada and Taiwan share so many values. And most importantly, it is those commitments to democracy, to freedom, human rights, and the rule of law. And unfortunately, there are countries around the world that have prevented Taiwan from fully engaging within the family of nations, within the global marketplace. I believe that Taiwan should be a part of organizations like ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Authority, and other organizations like the World Health Organization, where Taiwan has been prevented from participating meaningfully. I believe Canada should be at the forefront of promoting Taiwan's participation in those organizations. And also we should be at the forefront of actually implementing Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy by reaching out to Taiwan and saying, okay, it is time. We're going to negotiate an investment treaty with you. We're going to include you in the TPP, and we're going to help you become more integrated into the family of nations.